which is something that Northern Pike like. They like something that's long, wavy, but it has a tendency to pulse when you stroke it, when you strip it in. And the more you can incorporate that kind of a feature into the fly, the better off you are with Northern Pike. And same with lake trout, to be honest. Lake trout are kind of the same. Other predators, large trout themselves, rainbows, browns, and bulls, will go for a fly like that, but I find if you streamline them a little bit more, they're more inclined to take that as a really heavy, bulky fly. Having said that, I mean, I've caught bull trout, very large bull trout, very large browns, and very large streamers in that 7 to 9 inch class. But not as frequent as I do with trout, predator trout in that 3 to 7 inch range. The 9 inch range, it almost gets to be too much, and you're probably going to hunt more specific to a size of trout. So that's probably 10 plus pounds to get a trout feeding on that size of a bait. So if you look at the old Dr. Paul Pauladets here, and you know that we used to chase the in-fisherman crowd and the walleye wisdom and the pike wisdom stuff. And if you go back in there, there's a chapter in Pike Wisdom that talks about species size, Northern Pike specifically, and they divide Northern Pike into 3 classes, small, medium, large, and they all have a different behavior pattern. Small and medium have a lot of overlaps in their behavior throughout the year. Medium and large ones have some overlap, but not as much as the small to medium sized fish. So the half pound to 5 pound fish we would consider small, fish up to about 8 pounds we would consider medium class, and then fish exceeding the 8 to anywhere 15, 20, 25, 30 pounds. Those fish become more loners more often than not throughout the year. They're also not easily accessible year round. Large Northern Pike, big brood hens, big males being the 8, 9 pound class, is kind of on the upper edge of medium, on the small size of the large. They will frequent the big hens, the 15, 20, 30 pound hens. They overlap shortly after ice off in pre-spawn, during spawn, a little bit during post-spawn, and then they all go their own separate ways. The big hens, some will still hang about in the pre-summer period in shallower water, but for the most part they're out into open water, feeding on whitefish, cisco, tulaby. Those baits, for those large fish around 7, 9, 11, 13 inches that they're feeding on. So your fly kind of has to mimic that size. If we talk about silhouette being important and size being important, it's no different for pike. If you want to chase big predators, you have to give them bigger foods, but not always. But there are times, when they intercept with that type of prey, that's the size class. We do the same thing with lake trout. We're feeding on ciscos in June in the top 30 feet. You're looking at a 7 to 9 inch blue and white pattern. Again, something that breeds, and you can get down on a DI3 and you can very successfully fish lake trout in the top 30 feet as long as you know where the fish are and you're on top of them. And you follow the schools of cisco that they ball up, just like salmon do with herring. The lake trout do the same thing. Some lakes, like up at Elmer Lake Lodge with Kevin up there, his Lakers, because it's so high up north, the water stays cold, fish seldom ever need to go past 15 feet in depth. So you'll find them from ice off throughout most of the summer in less than 15 feet of water. So exceptionally accessible by fly angles. If I drop back to Northern Pike again, we go into the summer period. I used to fish a lot in Slave Lake because I was living there for a number of years while I was in the walleye competition circuit. Big pike would disappear after the springtime, but I found them often sitting in 15 to 25 feet on rock cairns, rock deposits, big rock piles, and they're chasing hunting perch. And if you can get in there and stay in front of them with a big fire tiger pattern or more of a natural perch pattern, you would always get a fish in that 15 to 25 pound class, sometimes 3 or 4 in a day. You're not, it's not, when you're hunting big fish like that, if you get 1 or 2 in a day, consider yourself being very successful. That's an excellent day. But Flyer's going to tell you, I mentioned Andy Weiss. Andy developed this technique of reversing the wing, folding it back over itself so it would open and breathe more. I adopted that into my flies about 10 years ago, and I tie that, use that wing style not only for large predator flies in 5/0, 6/0 range, but also down to probably about a 1/0, and then I use the extreme streamer style for 1/0 and smaller down to size 4s for larger trout. And so it's been very successful. And so we'll start off with this predator pattern. It's really easy to tie. Again, it's just a matter of making things work to your advantage. So what I start off with is just a clump of deer hair. Now you can use a colored deer hair if you want. I use some bucktail, and I try to get stuff off the lower end of the tail where it still has a lot of air pockets built, the hair is still hollow. And the reason I use that is I want the material to flare. And you'll notice I'm only going to tie this pattern on the front third of the hook shank. So I've incorporated a stinger here. This stinger length is the same as the back of the bend to behind the eye, and we tie that off right at the hook point on the shank. So if I never tie with a stinger hook on, that's just dangerous. And I never put a stinger on a fly until I'm out fishing, and I let the fish decide for me whether or not I need the stinger. Lake trout are notorious followers, but if they're feeding aggressively and heavily, they'll always hit a fly pattern at the head, so you don't need the stinger. Lake trout, Northern Pike behave the same way. Walleye behave the same way. Bull trout behave the same way. If they become a little shy, a little standoffish, or if they're doing feeling touches where they're just bumping into the fly or touching it with their mouths, that's when I'll put the stinger on. But I'll let the fish determine that long before I just go ahead and just start fishing with the stinger, because I don't necessarily find that I have to run a stinger all the time. So I only run it when I need to. So anyways, we took some bucktail here, and we're going to just add that. So this will be overall hook shank length, and I'm going to flare this into position once we get it started. We'll just spin that around the hook shank, manipulate it, pull it tight, make a couple of 3 turns, and this should then flare up and over. So you'll notice when I'm tying this, I'm not taking thousands and thousands of turns to secure my material in place, because we don't need to. If you use a proper thread, this is a 6/0 100 denier. It has a breaking strain well over 3 pounds with this new nano type technology. So I save a lot of thread, but just by using the right material. And then we'll just remove the cut ends here. Now, if you want, you can incorporate a little drop of head cement on here, or what I use is this Mercury M5T. It's UV resistant, water resistant, doesn't break down. You don't need a lot, just a tiny amount if he wants to come out of the bottle. And that'll be enough also probably to secure my predator fiber. So, sometimes we think we need to put a lot of material on. I don't. I want this bucktail to be able to open and close when I'm stripping it, so I want the predator fiber, when it swings up over the top of it, to be able to do the same. And the more you bulk up the material, the harder it is for this deer hair to open and close. So we take maybe that much and take half of that. We take 2/3 of it, say. So this is, the overall length of this comes in 18 inches, so I mean, if I wanted to tie it in, this long, I can. But we've got it tied off here just for transportation and packaging. So we've got 9 inches here for sure to work with. So I'll just cut a small piece off. And to work the material, you can just put it on like this if you want, and then work it around the hook shank. But I find that if you brush it out, I've got a dog hair comb and a nick comb, and I'll just brush this out just to open up the fibers. You can see how quickly it just really flares the material. And I have a basic rule of thumb that I sort of created for myself. I'll fold this in half, That's 50% where my finger is. So I either run, depending on how long, if I want a 7 or a 9-inch fly, I'll either run 60%, 60-40 deal, is where the tie-in point, with the 40% going to the back, or 70-30. So if I go back to 50%, which is here, and then take half of this, there's 75, and we'll just back up a pinch, and that's 70-30. That's the way I do my math, my fly math. So we'll just do a 60-40 here. We'll just tie it back, and we'll wrap it around the hook shank slightly before we tie it in. Again, you don't need a lot of turns. 3, 4, 5 turns, lock it down. This is not going anywhere. Don't build up mass on your fly if you don't have to. I mean, if you're doing that in today's day and age with the new nanotechnologies that are out there, you just don't need to. The more you thread you put on, the more problems you'll cause yourself. Let alone building up on the head, it just becomes too bulky. So with that, disappear in there for a bit. Now we can add in a little bit of flash. We can also brush this out somewhat. You can see how this is already opened up. So now we can add a little bit of flash, and I like running a little bit of pearlescence. You can buy all kinds of different pearl flashadoos or whatever, tinsels, Christmas tinsels from Christmas shops, whatever you want to do. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on the marketplace. Again, we'll run the 60-40 rule, but now I want my tinsel to run past this 40% that we tied in. So instead of running 60-40, running the 60 to the front, we'll run the 60 to the back. And then the next wing that we add in, we'll reverse that. And then just spread that out, much like we did on the intruders, placing either the pheasant or the rhea in place. So this will sit inside the pattern when it's opening and closing once we pull the top wing back over the pattern. So now I can pull all this, it's all divided. Pull this back and then brush this out. And then anything that's loose, we can just have it come back just past the tail, and we'll cut this flash off. Now if you want to mix, you can lay in a second color or a third color even, just doing the same process. So this next wing, if I was to throw, let's say, orange on top, then I would do the reverse. So we had the 60 forward before, this time I do the 40 forward, 60 back to bring it back to about this point, and then, so it all layers up. It all, there's a layer here, a layer here, a layer here, and a layer here. If you put 2 wings in, right? So it all tapers into itself. So you have the bulk of the mass in the shoulder, and then tapering out to the back. So you just kind of remember to go back and forth with it. It doesn't matter if you use a 70-30 or 60-40. Every time you put in a second wing or a 30 wing, do the opposite of what the previous wing was, right? So from here, I can add more flash. I still have lots and lots of room to work with. You can see there's still a fair bit. I can add more predator fiber, and I'll do that. I'll just add a little bit more predator fiber in this one. We'll make this a little bit different than the other pattern. Again, you can, predator fiber, there's 30-some different colors of it. You can mix and match it up however you like. There's lots and lots of ways to go on. You can emulate all kinds of different bait fish, whether freshwater or saltwater. We did 60-40, 60-40 again. So that'll come halfway around. And now I can lay in a little bit more flash. I'll try to run something a little bit different color, maybe something green and orange. Don't overdo it with the flash. You don't need to put in hordes and hordes of it. I mean, I've seen flies that are all flash, and that's a different purpose as well. But sometimes too much flash can certainly scare off fish as much as it does attract fish. And again, we'll just feather this out a little bit, and then add it, spreading it on the top again, the hook shank. And now we can pull all this back. And again, because it was divided and wrapped around the hook shank, almost like you would deer hair when you're spinning deer hair. It's kind of do the same thing with it. And now I'll just build a small ramp moving up the hook. We're back on the material. Give it a good brush. You can see how much that really opens up the fly. So this will breathe nice. So to finish it off, I finish it off with bucktail before we pop the heads on. And in this case, we'll just run a bucktail so that it comes no further back than 1/3 of the overall length of the pattern. So from the front of the hook, I don't want it really past where just doing a visual here, past the bend itself. So that would, in the prey itself, that would emulate the shoulder area. And this is often where the predator fish will hit. If they're positive feeding mode, they'll hit in that shoulder head area. So they shouldn't engulf the hook every single time if they're in a positive mood. Like I said, if they're tail nipping it, put the stinger on because we're already set up for that. So I'll just run a little bit of bucktail here. And again, I just want to measure off where that's going to be, which will be roughly there, and we'll cut off the ends of this. We need a garbage can, but we don't have. And we'll put this around the hook itself, give it a few spins, make sure that hair is all the way around. Flare that up. And again, this will flare a little bit in the back here, and that's fine. We'll just leave that in place. And just make sure it's good and tight. Lay in a half hitch, a wood finish. And this fly is, from the tying perspective, is complete, but not ready to fish. So now we'll just throw a little drop of head cement or zap in here. And that'll be enough to secure that. So now what I do is I take a head, and I use a head product, plastic head. They come in hard plastic or soft plastic. I prefer the soft plastics because when they hit the side of the boat or a rock or your buddy, they don't shatter. And the hard plastics will have a tendency to do that. So, they're all mixed in here. So this is a hard one. If you look at it, I can't squeeze down on that and open or close it. This is a soft one. If you look at the back end, you can open and close this. Okay. These come in a clear plastic. I just color them with a Copic marker or felt marker to suit the head color I need for the different patterns that I'm using. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of head cement inside, and I'll throw a little sparkle glitter on the inside of the skull as well before I push it onto the head over the fly. So the way I apply this, I'll just take a little bit of my glue again, add a top and bottom inside the head. Push this on over top. Sort of find center, and the head will do all the work for you just by pushing all that back. You can get all the hair. And just pull the hair around, make sure it's nice and even. Now we could have added hackles in here down the sides if you want before we put the head on and all that, and you can make them as fancy as you want. But this is the basic way I tie this style of a predator pattern, whether fresh or saltwater. And you can change the head size if you don't. If that's too large, you can always run something a little bit smaller. So whatever you're happy with. We'll just throw a smaller size one on here. I've already got all the glue on there. You know, that might be more proportionate to what you're doing. And I try to push it so the head is up so I don't fill the gap. And keep that as open as possible. And that's really basic, easy to throw predator pattern. So I use this on 7-weight rods. I fish lake trout, northern pike, bull trout. It's all on 7-weight rod. Because of the weight of fly rod is what is determined by 1, wind condition, 2, the size of fly you're throwing, and not so much size as much as it can be weight. And if you have a fly here that's almost as light as a dry fly, you don't need anything heavier than that. You don't need a 9-weight, 10-weight, 11-weight. You know, that's, to me, I go out with clients. I want them throwing 7 weights because I can have them throwing that all day long for 8 hours and landing fish, and lots of fish. Start putting them into 8, 9, 10 weights. 2 hours later, the customer's done. They're wiped out. And that's not fair to the customer. They paid for a full day of fishing and they didn't pay for an exercise on the rig around the lake. Workout program. So I think you need to use your head on this a little bit. So this is, because of the nature of the way this pattern's tied, I was throwing this with a 4-weight this spring. I made a mistake. I thought I grabbed my 7-weight and I grabbed a 4-weight. And I was standing on the dock and still casting 60 feet with it. So it's that light of a fly. I had an 8-weight line on it. I was lucky. And so that's a simple, easy predator pattern. Like I said, you can change up the colors, make them whatever color you like. I think I have some samples here somewhere. I did. I'm sure there's that. Is there should be a whole rack of flies that are on the ring somewhere. Pull those out earlier. Yeah, we'll find them. We'll just show them to the ready. So, like I said, there's a pattern I tie for a bunch of guys that fish kokanee, bull trout when they're kokanee are running. Just this black and white searching pattern. I tied them in purple. Don Freshy and his friends were out fishing up north. Don said he caught his personal, either him or his brother caught his personal best on one that I call, it's just a purple, what we call a purple dog. Fire tiger version. So you can, like I said, you can mix and match it however you like. I have a tendency to follow the Len Thompson color scheme, red and white, yellow, orange. Well, old Mr. Thompson back in the 50s and earlier, he had, for freshwater predators, he had the color schemes down pat. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. He did a good job. So we do the red devils, chartreuse and blue is one of my favorites for Lakers, red and yellow, white, hot orange, yellow, white, hot olive, hot orange. This was an absolute killer on Elmer Lake Lodge for lake trout last year. Another hot orange, hot pink and white. And that to me is, that's one of my favorite bull trout patterns. Natural whitefish version, more hot orange, all white. Sucker pattern for shallow stained water, for when the pike come in, start feeding on the lake suckers when they're spawning. Cat whisper, chartreuse and white's just a good fall and spring color. It's just a big attractor pattern, easily seen in stained water or clear water. So you just mix and match it however you want. And I know the fly will do well for you, so just have some fun with it. The other pattern that we were talking about, there's a new material that we came out with a year ago. It's called Extreme Chenille. And there is 18 different colors of Extreme Chenille, from this rainbow style pattern, Christmas they call it. There's blue, there's red, there's black, there's white and silver, there's cream color, there's a lichen, which is almost like a gray. I was happy with that, but I also found if I took white and dyed my own gray so that I could get a little closer for patterns where bull trout are fishing on young grayling, which would be rivers north of the North Saskatchewan River, the Athabasca watershed system, then I found this pattern was pretty good for bull trout. It's not, this is only a 3.5 inch pattern. I do tie them a little bit larger. And I'll show you how to manipulate this material to make this. This is really super simple, super easy. You've seen samples of it swimming in the tank there. It pulses and moves very well. It does a wonderful job of catching fish. So I just need my hooks, which are so what I run is it's called a Hanke 750, and this is a European pike streamer hook. By our standards here in Canada, it's probably a good Bow River leech hook, woolly bugger hook. It has a limerick bend in it, and that's one of the things I like about it. So it gives me a larger gape to work with. So I get more hooking power, more hook sets with it. The fly, if it's not tied, if it's tied too bulky, then it doesn't close off this area. And the way I design the pattern, again, I want, if I have positive fish, they're going to hit the head shoulder area, so it puts the hook right in the center of the mouth. If they're going to come tail nipping, I do set this up on occasion with a stinger hook as well, which again goes from the back of the bend. The length measures out from the back of the bend to behind the eye. We'll grab that loop, set that right over the hook point, and tie it down. So that way we've got one full hook shank length sticking out the back. Does everyone follow what I'm saying there? Is that clear as mud? I'll just do one with a stinger hook. I normally don't tie this pattern with a stinger hook. I haven't found a huge need for it, but I always have a few in the box. So we'll just run a thread base. On the top of the bend. And again, I'll run a trace wire, which is also what I use for my leaders. And it's a 24-pound test, 0.18 mil material. It's plastic coated, it's knottable, and it does very, very well. It makes a great leader. It's also the same material I use for a leader on my pike flies. I run a Davy knot when I tie this onto the hook, and it's just bead wire you can buy at bead shops. You get 30 meters for $6. I just cut a piece off. Again, measured from the back of the bend of the hook to just behind the eye here. I'll pinch that off, reposition it at the back of the hook. And we'll just go, I should do just touching turns with this coming up the hook shank. I give myself, a good 3/8 to a ½ inch here. And I'm going to fold this back over and cut it off about halfway down that tie down section. That section we tied in, and now I'll just double it back over. Watch this now, so dig right into that core, into that plastic sleeve that's encompassed that wire. It's not going anyways. I'm going to pull it tight here again and break my thread, bend my hook. Start up a little further up. Can I just make sure this is all covered? And you can lay some nail polish on it, or zap it up, or M5T, whatever you like. But that's the length of the stinger that I put in. It doesn't have to be way back here. Again, we just want those guys that come in and just tail nip the butt end of the bait fish. So with this, now I'll just bring my thread up near the front, and we'll take. I brought everyone a sample of a gray material. This is my own inventory. What I did was I took Semperfli's white and silver because I wanted a true gray for the grayling version of this. So I just dyed my own, and I had a bunch of extra stuff kicking around. So I just gave all those who attended some. I think we're missing. Who didn't get one? There you go. There you go. There you go. That's good. So, you're going to have a giggle. Hans Van Klinken and I were sitting at a bench 5 years ago, and he says, I got this material, which was this. And he says, it needs to be out on the market for fly time. And I got looking at it, and he showed me a tying technique that I had long forgotten about. We were tying tarpon flies that night. And I laughed, and I thought, this is why I like him. Why I like fishing with him. He keeps it simple. He loves the KISS program, and so do I. So what we do is take a piece about 18 inches long, double it up. So this is the cut ends. We're going to tie that in near the front here. I believe it keeps haunting me. And then we'll just take all this and pull it back. And then just do wraps. So there, we'll tie a half hitch off at the back of the bend. Now, you can take a dubbing tool, either a turbo spin or anything like that. I take my Auto Pro dub, and I go open this material up, just brush it back and forth, so I'll try to get it standing about 90 degrees. And we're spun. That wants a knot on top of itself. You see how that knots up? Well, measure off in front of the hook shank, thumb thickness, width. This will be the back of the tail. I'll pinch this down here, let it go, it all spins up. There's your tail. If you're not happy with it, just redo it. And that's a little simple, right? So that's how we used to. We didn't have the right kind of material for building tarpon toads. This is what we used. We used chenilles to build the tails. Okay? So the rest of the material, we just work it forward. Bring the thread up behind the hook eye. And then we'll just take tight touching turns with this material and stroke all the material back as we move forward. This is so simple, so easy. Anybody can tie this. And that's why I like this fly, because anybody can tie it at any skill level. So if I want to build a bit of a shoulder, I could have done it by pre-building an underbody, but I can also just wrap this material back on top of itself. 1 or 2 turns. And we come up and then tie off. Push that all back, make sure it's good and tight. And then I can take a second material. And we'll just tie that in. We'll use black. Just 'cause. Again, with all the different colors of this, you can mix and match. I think not quite as much this time. Tie this off in the front. But be careful not to build up too much mass close to the hook eye, because when we throw the plastic head on this, if it's too much, then it doesn't want to, the head won't fit. So, but this time we spun it, we're not going to allow it to wrap on top of itself. We just do a wrap, screw it back. Do a wrap, screw it back. So I fished this in a white version last year on the Bow River. It did very, very well. I didn't get to fish it as much as I wanted to, but I was happy with the results I got, the timeline that I did fish it. If you want, you don't have to cut this extra piece off. You can let this drag out the back as a top wing, and then just tie off in front of the head and behind the hook eye. So it still doesn't look like it should, but it will. We take a stainless steel wire brush, which is disappeared. Like this. Princess Auto comes in a set of 3, $5.95. There's a stainless one, a brass one, and a nylon one. I find this stainless one works real well. So this material, the way it's designed, these frizzes are all little threads. And each of those threads have 4 or 5 little pieces of thread to make a little rope. And the more you brush it, and the more you separate it, the bushier it gets. And that's the secret to this fly. The more you fish it. If you didn't do this in the water, it will all work itself out. So the more you fish this, the more fish it catches, the better the fly actually works. Backbone it. Now it starts to take shape. I can do that. I can do whatever I want with this. Just keep brushing it. When we had doubled it over, I'll just go back and forth and really get all those fibers out of there. Okay, so now we get a little bit better profile. And once again, we can just grab a head, a little smaller in size this time. Do what's called a number 2. Oh, I've got touches of the red one here. Got a little red one left, so we'll just throw a little red head on because that's what we got. You use your zap, put it on the inside of the head. Flip it around, top and bottom. And you push that on. It's enough to hold it in place once it's dry, it's not going inwards. Just push it on until that hook eye is exposed. If you can't get it on far enough, if you use a bic pen or a hollow hard plastic tube, you can push on that instead of pushing on the head and slipping off, burying your thumb or your finger into the hook. So that's the Extreme Screamer. That's simple, easy. I've got And so far I've caught rainbows, browns on it, I've caught pike and walleye on it, and bullduck. So I'm going to go chase tigers with it here this summer, and we'll go chase brookies with it here of my time a little smaller. I think the tigers will probably take this, but I think for the tiger, I'll probably make it half this size and overall length. And still use the same hook shank, same hook size. So that's a simple, easy system. So we talked a little bit about a leader system. I run a very, very straightforward, easy leader for Northern Pike. And what I basically do is run 5 feet of 80-pound test. I do a loop-to-loop connection. Do a loop-to-loop setup. Have that one right here. So this is versatile. I'll build it and package it, do it in sets of 3. So I'll do this 80-pound test. It's just trilene, big game. You can run 60 if you want. I find with the 80, I can roll 13-inch flies with this quite easily. So this is a little shorter one, but normally it would be 5 feet. So it would be loop onto my dry line or my sinking line. The other end, I'll take the tippet section. I'll make a tippet section 2 feet long to 3 feet long at a 40-pound test. I've seen very few pike that will break 40-pound test. The odd one will tooth it here and there, but it doesn't happen very often. It's cheap, it's easy to change. Or I'll use the trace wire, like I showed you, this bead-along wire. Here, I'll use that on a 20 or on a 40-pound section. But what I'll do is I'll run a double uni nut to create the connection between the wire and mono or the fluorocarbon. Okay. So we've got a usable piece of wire here that's 18 to 20 inches long. And by having a loop on this end, I can now make my tippet section interchangeable as they get destroyed or as conditions change. If I find the fish are a little spooky and they don't like the black wire or the silver wire, then I'll go to a straight mono. And even with this one with the trace wire, as I use this up, instead of discarding the whole rollover section of the leader, I just remove this piece, put a new piece on, and away we go again. So it is very, very easy to work and makes a lot of sense, and I don't have to. The most expensive part of the leader is the butt section, and yet the most usable stuff is the stuff we always use in the tippet section, so maybe the tippet should be interchangeable. Right? That's kind of sort of what my thinking was. Just to save money and to be versatile. So in this pattern here, I'll take this streamer, and all I do is, I don't know if you can see it from there or there, right in front here. Ooh, this out of the way. So I'll run it, the wire, through the eye of the hook, come around, and I'll go over once, and through it, go over top once and through, working backwards towards the eye of the hook. And this is my daily knot, and that is it. That will not break, ever. It's tight. You want to make sure that this tag end is at 90 degrees. Take a pair of scissors and nippers out in the lake, cut that off. And I'll do this for any of my predator setups, whether I'm fishing trout, pike, walleye, doesn't matter. That knot is not coming apart. So very easy, knottable wire, easy to work with, 24-pound test. You don't need a lot to be successful with this, and it's just smart fishing. So, anyways, that's kind of that. Any questions?
You mentioned grading at grading.
Mm-hmm.
For grading. What's the
Both, smaller grayling fry. They're more of a whitish tannish, but they do reflect grays and silvers. And any of the bull trout that are kind of in the North Saskatchewan doesn't have grayling, but the Athabasca Rivershed, the Peace Rivershed, then this is one of my go-to color combinations. But I've used it for other things as well. I mean, I've used it to imitate, baby suckers and baby whitefish, and fishing in the North Saskatchewan. This gray version is just a color that I like to work with. I've always enjoyed working with grays, especially with predators. I've tied this in gray with a pink head for bull trout on the southern rivers throughout Calgary and the Gills Nest region as well. So, but it's the last of my gray. I'm gonna have to dye some more up. I dyed that up years and years ago. Getting down to the tail end of it. Now on more new stuff, so I thought I'd bring in a bunch of you guys to try it out and give it a whirl. But yeah, don't be afraid to work with it. And like I said, brush the heck out of this stream streamer. The more you brush it and clean it up, the better it works. The more fish you catch, the better it works. It just gets more fuller. And you watch it in the tank, I mean, it takes nothing to give it movement. Any other questions?
How long was that 40 pounds? That section?
Oh, that I do the fly fishing method, 5 feet, thumb to thumb. That's the butt section.
A little bit after the butt section. You said that was 80 pounds.
Yeah, this one is 80 pound.
Yeah.
Because I can roll over 13-inch flies with no problem with my 7.
But then what comes after the butt section?
Then you go 40 pound.
40 pound.
2 feet. 18 inches of trace wire, or just the 2 feet of 40 pound.
So that acts as your tip.
That'll be my tippet, which is interchangeable. Again, loop to loop connection, right? Yeah, keep it simple, keep it versatile, keep your flies light by design. That way you can get away with throwing lighter rods. And 7-weight rod can land some pretty hefty fish. I know lots of guys that have landed 20+ pound steelhead in some pretty outrageous rivers with it. So it's certainly going to handle a northern in the lake, or 20 or 30 pound lake trout. Again, if you need to move, and I would throw a weight forward 8-weight on those 7-weights, just overline. But then if I take my 8-weight rod out, if it's too windy, I can still throw that same fly line on those, right? So I just have a faster action. The faster the action, the better it is for wind. So if you get into a high wind scenario, then you want something with a moderate fast and an 8-weight. It's not for getting distance, it's for just getting it out there. Because you need to exceed wind speed with your line speed to get past the wind to throw it. So that's the only reason I jump into an 8-weight. Fly size does not determine, fish do not, size for the most part, do not determine my fly rod weight.
A couple of questions, Gary. That fly you just did there, could you do something like that for steelhead? Right.
I haven't fished it for steelhead yet, but I have tied a fly. I don't know if I brought it. I actually tied one in a sky combs, yellow, orange, and blue. I did that on purpose. I used blue. I'm curious. I have some friends I'm going to send it out to out on the island. But I've done some other things with this as well. We have that 15 mil chenille, and what I've done is when I doubled it up, like the gray stuff here, and I've tied in a single strand of 15 mil chenille, and I've spun it together with the double strand, and then let it spin on itself to create the tail. And I've created this rainbow pattern. So you've got the 15 mil chenille inside here in the tail, with the white and silver on the outside. And then I tied that up into the hook shank, and I just tied the white and gray. With the white, and I'll put a lichen on the front. It's kind of a greeny olive. And then just paint it up with a Copic marker. So I put some par marks on just for fun and kind of created a baby rainbow. So there's so many possibilities with this. Gray ghosts that I've tied for friends of mine, out on the East Coast, we fish in brook trout. I mean, gray ghost is probably about as famous a pattern as you're going to get for brook trout. And Gary Stevens developed that. And I just took my favorite gray and built a gray ghost by mixing it with orange. So you can see the orange is speckled all through here. Right? Until we get to the front, the gray runs out, and then we just have the orange, and let's put some peacock sword across the back, and then some silver pheasant for cheeks over an orange head. It's not a real gray ghost, but the color combination, when I hear gray ghost, I automatically think gray and orange, right? So like catwolves, chartreuse and white. Well, good Bull River color version. I love your woolly boogers, Gary, but I think I finally came up with something I might be able to test you.
Yeah. Can you do it in 2 minutes?
Yeah, you can have this one. Take this one with you, buddy.
What's that?
Take this one with you.
Cool.
You talk about the eyes. You didn't put eyes on that first.
Yeah, I usually pre-build them, but yeah, the first one I didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I like using red eyes. Red eyes to me is another hot spot. Another hot spot and indicator. Another strike point for the fish. I do use, even in the holographic eyes, just the little stick-on labels. I often use red. For me, red is just a go-to color for eyes. But I've used the silvers and yellows. I've used the fish skull eyes. I've used everybody's eyes. And the fish skull eyes are actually really quite good. They're pretty true to life, and I like that. But then again, if you build enough of these and you throw enough of them, it's also a cost issue as well. So, but I'll just take holographic tape and punch that out, and make an eye. It would be red almost always. Good night, Barry. So yeah. And like I said, I mean, I just take a Copic pen, whatever color you want. Paint your heads. You want to do all the eyes, predetermine you do all your eyes ahead of time, go ahead. That way you just don't have to mess with it. We've had some pretty bad hockey games, so I've been doing a little paint and a little bit of glue and around the hockey games. And, you just build up some inventory, have it laying around, and you're ready to use it. It's already pre-built. That's probably what takes the longest is building the heads, painting them, putting the eyes on, and putting 2 coats of nail polish on there. By the time that dries, that really takes longer than actually tying the fly. So that's twice your timeline on both patterns. I mean, whether you're tying the big predator fly or you're tying the extreme streamer, either one of them, it's head. The building of the head is what takes the longest. Any other questions? Oh. You know what? I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I would probably throw something bright and silvery, or white and silver, white and gold to start with, and then offset it probably with an orange or a pink or maybe a blue. But so I'd probably do white and silver with orange, white and silver with pink to start with, and then maybe a yellow and orange. Again, this is for a guy out in the lodge out east, that one, and this one. These are the color combinations he's asked for his brook trout. Okay, and he's also taking these up, I believe, to Igloo Lake Lodge in northern Quebec, or northern Labrador, where they fish very large brookies. They're up to 10 pounds. They also have Arctic char there, and they have some of the largest Atlantic salmon running in that part of the world. They're in the 20-pound class, and I'm sure Rob's going to be throwing these at all 3 species, I would think. He's going to drag them up there, and find out. So yeah, it's we talked about blending that 15 mil. Here's one that's done with yellow and chartreuse 15 mil core. Once you do that, it makes his tail a little stiffer, right? So you're not going to get as much wiggling action out of it. But again, this is a lake trout color combination. Chartreuse and blue is a real popular lake trout color version for myself. I've done very, very well with chartreuse and blue. Gin clear water, bright sunny days, and usually 30 to 40 feet down. So I'm running a little bit deeper. And I fished this color version on the North Saskatchewan last year. Walleye heaven and saugers. So it does catch fish. You know that. It just needs to be out in front of more fish. It's a new streamer. I've kind of been playing with this for 5 years, but I only had 2 or 3 of these chenilles in different colors, so I was limited. But now that we've come out with this in the marketplace, the extreme chenilles, there's so many more colors, so there's so much more that I can play with now. So it's good experimenting, right? How your fly box. I like when my fly box is kind of confusing to a chameleon. He kind of thinks he's crawling into a Smarties box and he's totally messed up. That's the way my fly box looks, and I love it that way, right? It's bright, and it's glitzy, and it's glamorous. I've got lots of naturals in there as well, but I play a lot with the lure effect and instigating strikes from fish that are hammering out. They're looking for things that are highly visible from greater distances. Again, we talked about this before. Why does a red devil? Why does a 5 of diamonds? It's high visibility. The spoons make lots of noise. They got lots of flash and roll to them. They got lots of color. And there's no reason why we can't build streamers to do the same thing. And we're still fishing the same fish. It doesn't matter if you're fishing for bull trout or the spinning rod or the flyer, but it's still bull trout, right? If you walk in there with the mentality of a spinning rod guy, you fish one way. If you look at the catching end, walk in there at the fly angler and look at that same catching end, that guy running a 5 of diamonds or a red devil is doing well, like really well. Why, as a fly angler, wouldn't I do the same? Run something red and white or run something yellow and orange? The problem's already half solved. I might have to figure out the overall length and size, but the problem's already solved in the color. Any other questions? I think we're good. Anything on? Thanks for coming out. Welcome to Edmonton, Alberta, and our cold winters. Going down to Reid's Fly Shop. We got all kinds of stuff down here for everyone to see. So, yeah, good place to hang out. Thanks for coming out and watching. Have a great day.